Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism. And we're going to take on a bit of an Am I the Asshole? This is actually a very good one for this channel. So let's see what this person has to say. The person writing this is a 23-year-old woman who says, as children, my parents would buy my two brothers whatever they requested, regardless of how expensive it was, allowed them to go on trips with them, and threw them over-the-top birthday parties, while I didn't receive any. For example, my brothers got to go to Disney for their birthdays while I stayed with my grandparents. Fortunately, my aunt and grandmother took me to Disney a few months later. After being called out, they said they couldn't afford the trip for 5 people. As we got a little older, my parents had us working in their business as a restaurant after school and on weekends. They gave both my brothers allowances for helping out while I didn't receive anything and was expected to work more hours. I wish it was just financial abuse, though. My parents always said very hurtful things. They'd make comments when I entered the room, and I honestly still don't know what I did wrong. When my brother graduated high school, they gave him an all-inclusive trip around Europe for the summer. When I graduated the next year, I didn't even get a party from them. I think the worst of it being that they paid for both of my brothers' higher education, but told me to figure it out because I can't afford to pay for 3 college degrees. At the age of 18, I moved in with my grandparents full-time and decided not to go to college because I didn't want to get into debt or put that burden on my grandparents, who also offered to pay for some of my college. I did, however, take them up on their offer to financially support me until I had a job. My grandmother gifted me about $5,000 after moving in with her to help me start an online business I told her about. Long story short, my online shop blew up and made well over 6 figures my first year. Within 5 years, 2 online shops, and a lot of investing in real estate and stocks, I now make way more money than my parents ever made combined. Whew. During the pandemic, my parents had to shut down their restaurant and are still struggling to make ends meet. They are also unable to pay for their mortgage and are afraid they'll go homeless if I don't support them. They also have a lot of medical bills after my father got into an accident and needed surgery for his knee. Karma's a bitch, huh? I, being so grateful for everything my grandparents and aunt have done for me, decided to get my grandparents their dream home and paid off my aunt's debt for medical school. After realizing I can also easily afford to pay off their debts and mortgage, my parents have been begging me, literal tears, to save their home, but I refused. They told me I'm an asshole and deserved my upbringing and that I shouldn't be punishing my siblings and forcing them out of their homes for the actions of my parents. I am not punishing my siblings, though. I'll be more than happy to support them, especially my baby sister, if she comes and stays with me or my grandparents. Am I the asshole for watching them become homeless? This is actually sort of like a real tale of triumph for a scapegoat. You know me, I love a story where the scapegoat comes out on top. So there's a lot here. Clearly the story of a scapegoat. And I think that when we hear scapegoat stories, they almost sound like a Dickens story. Like, really? Would a family mob on one person like this? Yes, they would. And this happens quite a bit in narcissistic family systems, where there's very different treatment. It's interesting. The brothers were treated well. She's a daughter. She was not. So there might be some cultural factors at play here as well. Doesn't make it okay. But for whatever reason, this gal was their scapegoat, and over and over. And then you start to think like, oh, well, maybe she's just keeping all her money. She went ahead and, by her report, took care of all the grandparents' stuff and the aunt stuff, the people who had her back. She's actually stepping in and taking good care of them. So this scapegoated dynamic, to me, again, my favorite stories are where the scapegoats triumph. Now this person, just to put this in context, she had a unique strength in her story that a lot of scapegoats in narcissistic or abusive, or I don't know if the parents are narcissistic, they're certainly scapegoaters. Whether they're narcissistic, I have no idea. But in scapegoated family systems, we'll put it that way, that one thing that the scapegoat often doesn't have is a safe place to go. And it's funny how just those things can make such a difference. And in her case, she had that with the grandparents. You know, my wish for all scapegoats is that they have one soft place to go or land or be seen. And she had that there. And $5,000 isn't a lot of money, but that with that little bit of seed money, she killed it. Which, again, watching a scapegoat succeed for me is just absolute sheer joy. However, what is so interesting is the entitlement of the scapegoating parents, right? To think, well, she's bailing everyone else out. How about us? What fascinated me about this story when I read it was that as I was reading it, I could easily hear people thinking like, well, just because she was scapegoated, she won in the end, didn't she? So she should get over all of that and then do the bigger thing and take care of her parents. Why? Because I can tell you this, no matter how much money her parents made, they would have never given a cent to her. This whole idea of shaming a survivor, especially a scapegoated survivor of one of these systems, for not sort of being the bigger person. Being the bigger person often just means that the narcissist gets their way and it just emboldens and feeds their entitlement. Personally, what I think this gal should do is buy her parents' house and charge them rent. That to me would be beautiful poetic justice. And she could even charge them under market rent. But there's something that feels real good about the idea that she could potentially be their landlord. And since it sounds like she has other investment properties, it doesn't sound like that would be beyond the pale for her. And then her idiot brothers could stay in that house too. And they could all pay her rent. So I think that that would be an interesting twist on this if she really is, it depends on how badly she feels about her parents becoming homeless. My guess is her parents may actually potentially be exaggerating to manipulate the scapegoat with guilt, a dynamic that works brilliantly with scapegoats who often spend their lives wondering, do I need to win my parents over? I also like about the story that this is where when a person is able to find success despite coming from a abusive, negating, invalidating system, it doesn't mean that the person's like, hey, look at me, I succeeded, I'm great. This woman is still struggling with a sense of, am I the asshole? There's that sense of doubt. I just don't see it. I think that it is after people have abused you to feel like you have to now step in and take care of their needs because they feel entitled to it. It would have been a very different story if they didn't ask for it and she decided to step in and do it. But not only are they showing up hat in hand, where they really show their true colors, is when she doesn't step in and say, of course I'll take care of it all, that they start telling her, well, she deserved all the bad treatment she got in childhood. So that quick turning on a dime really speaks to sort of the truth of how they felt somehow, for whatever their reasons were, for scapegoating this daughter, of doing that. And she's even said, if my brothers and my young sister want to come live with my grandparents, I would support that. But interestingly, I mean, obviously one of the brothers is older than her because he graduated high school before her. But obviously that wasn't going to work. Her parents want that entitlement of wanting what they want when they want it. So I love this story because it's, when I hear tales of triumph for scapegoats, that's great. That self-doubt that always pervades a scapegoat, she owes her parents nothing. I mean, less than nothing, because in fact they did nothing for her and in many ways tried to hamstring her, really impede her education and all that. Despite that, she succeeded and really lavished upon the people who supported her tremendous support. So she did the right thing for the people who did right by her. There's a lot of people out there, though, who would potentially shame someone like her, saying, you need to step up. I don't know that she does, but like I said, I would love to see this gal become her parents' landlord. That would be that sort of power shift. That would be beautiful, and say, if you don't pay your rent, I can evict you and I'll get someone else into this house. So sort of an interesting twist. And I think that what does happen is, I think that under those circumstances, that people can still feel as though that they owe someone something, thus her doubting and wondering, is she the one who is the problem in this particular story? And no, she actually wasn't. So I really love this. And no, she's not the asshole for watching them become homeless. They don't need to, but she might want to make sure that they pay her the rent on time. Those are my thoughts. Would love to hear yours.